Hi, this is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and today we're talking about a really kind of hard subject. Really talking about like how can we heal our inner child, things that have happened to us in our current life that happened way back when. And this could be any number of things, and we're going to talk about this and maybe some ways that you might be able to find some new solutions. So one of the things that's really important is kind of like healing our inner child isn't something that's always been around. It kind of really started in like the 70s or so, of kind of like literally talking about like things that have happened to us in our past, and how to get over some of them, or how to understand them, or how to release some of them. So we're going to talk about some of these, and I beg of you, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please leave them below. This is a very touchy subject for me because I was a child in kind of a very weird structure of a family, and so it's kind of brought up some things for me, and I guarantee you there's some planetary stuff that have all actually helped to kind of bring this forward and kind of give me some new insights and some new kind of like revelations in thought with this as well. So really, our inner child is literally this child in this life, things that we went through as a kid. And this could be like just being in a dysfunctional family. This could be like patterns of like pain, sorrow, trauma, abuse, any kind of abuse, physical, emotional, sexual abuse. All of that kind of runs in families for long periods of time. And a lot of times, when an adult does it to a child, it's because it happened to them. And that was kind of one of those revelations for me. It's like, wow, I didn't realize how far back this goes genealogy wise in my family. So it was kind of like, ooh, interesting, very interesting in this part. But it's one of those, I will tell you that there's a lot of guilt that a lot of people have, like, I don't want to blame my parents, and I felt like they were doing the best they could. Yes, and there's choices that they could have made differently. There's tons of things that could have changed the way they dealt with life, and for whatever reason, this is what we went through as a child, and it doesn't mean that our childhood was horrible, or full of abuse or anything else. It just means that we went through some things that maybe we haven't been able to let go of. And that's what this is talking about, those things that we can't quite let go of. And then there are people that have been through like super abuse, like they were abused constantly, physically, emotionally, sexually abused. And so that's what we're talking about. It's kind of like really interesting stuff. I will tell you that sometimes these kind of come out in some different ways. And sometimes this comes out in a very passive aggressive way. So your parents may have been very passive aggressive and they kind of pass that on to you. And sometimes that's really that, like they'll be nice at one time and then they're aggressive the next time. You're like, oh, okay, where did this come from? This could also be some negative self-beliefs, kind of like, I'm always bad, I'm guilty of everything. I kind of grew up with the kind of like, just put the blame on me, whatever it is, I'll just take the blame for it, because it was like, I felt like I was being blamed for so many things that really weren't in my control. So it's like, bring it on, like I'll deal with it. But I realize now that how abusive that was to me, and it was kind of like that negative self-belief, like just bring it on, I'll deal with it at some point. There's also many families that have neglect. They'll have, families that both parents work, or there's other things going on, or sometimes like there's grandparents involved in this as well, but that child believes that they're not getting the attention or the love that they really require or desire in their life. So it's kind of like they feel neglected in that aspect. I will tell you, abuse happens, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, all kinds of crazy things come in. But there's all kinds of abuse, and sometimes it's very little abuse, and then sometimes it's huge, and it really depends on your family and how the family dynamics work. Sometimes there can be abandonment issues too, and usually this comes around like usually if you have an early loss of a parent, like when you're really young, or a sibling, or a grandparent that's kind of like a parent, that can bring on like abandonment, like they left me. I also deal with a lot of kids of family members that like the dad was just, had a baby, baby mama, and had that child and then left, and that child just feels abandoned. Like, why wasn't I important enough for them to raise me? Why wasn't I important enough for them to come and be with me as I grew up and to watch me take my first steps? Or, where were they on my first day of school? So there's a lot of abandonment issues with kids that really don't have both of their parents around them. This can kind of really kind of move us forward and hopefully bringing us like some better ways to work on things or kind of work through things. It's really important that we really access those memories and really look at them from the outside. If we look at them from the inside, a lot of times they're just re-triggering us. But if we look at them from the outside, it's kind of like, wow, now I can see what was really going on. And sometimes just being older, kind of giving you that perspective of like, I can understand where they would get, angry about this or upset about this, or this was going on, or what else was going on in their lives at the same time that we're going through that as well. There are a lot of things to talk about, like inner child wise. A lot of children go through kind of like this, like, I want to be healed. I want to like let go of those patterns, the emotional, the wounds, the failures, the fears, all of that usually comes in that trauma and that drama balance there, and comes in with kind of like, how do I deal with this? And one of the things that I have found is if you don't deal with it as the parent, you actually pass that on to your kids. And that really got me going a couple of years ago when someone told me that. I'm like, wait. So you're saying I got some of this because my parents didn't deal with their stuff. And then when I have kids, they're going to deal with that stuff. And so it's like, it can be so generational. It can be parents and grandparents and great grandparents, kind of like this genealogy of bringing it down the pike. And so that kid is kind of like handcuffed to these old ideas and things that don't work, and they don't understand why. And so that's what I've seen with a lot of people. It's kind of like going back generationally and kind of changing things, and that those negative energies literally come in from parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, wow. One of the things that I will say is kind of, I have found probably the easiest way to kind of work through this is to do a past life regression, and not necessarily go into a past life, but go into our past in this life and kind of work through some of these and kind of really think about what was going on. Sometimes it also helps to kind of go into connecting with your parents' energy of kind of like, what were they going through when the abuse happened, what was going on in their life. And it could be going into your grandparents or great grandparents and kind of really thinking about that energy of like, where else could this energy be coming in from, and looking at that, like I said, not from the inside, but kind of like the outside. Like, now that it's outside of me, how does that make me feel? How does that make me kind of get a different perspective than what's going on? Because like I said, if it's inside, it can be really triggering at the same time because you live through it. Some of the things that happened that you kind of know that there was probably something going on, especially if you are at a certain age. Usually I would say probably about 35 or older, you'll start dealing with this naturally. Like, I think I have to clear this stuff up. And a lot of times it's kind of, you may feel numbing, like something happens and you're just being triggered, and other things happen and you're kind of like, I know I should be reacting to this, but I'm not. Kind of that numbing reaction to things. Addictions, and this can be all types of addictions, even workaholics, alcoholics, drug addicts, all of that are kind of like, they're just coping mechanisms. They're kind of like trying to calm things down or keep your focus on something else while this is going on in the background. So that can really be overwhelming. But I will guarantee you that most of us are really choosing to have a true healthy lifestyle, and those wounds don't heal within ourselves. We end up passing them on. So it's really important to kind of work through this. If you're feeling like, yeah, this is me, work through it now, and don't wait until it's affecting your kids or grandkids and down the line. Make sure that you're taking that on for you and make sure you're making those changes of what's happening. I work with a lot of clients that are going through something like this, and we can, like I said, do past life meditations and kind of get a better look at this and kind of give us a different insight than what we normally would deal with at this time. So let's do some angel cards and see what our angels have to say about all of this abuse, because a lot of times they were there with us when this was going on. Even if they were trying to help us or help them, it's like they were there. So they have a lot of messages sometimes. Let's see. This one is conjunction, and this is all about the alliance. This is really coming forward, and I will say this comes forward so we can bring in healing. That alliance is like, let's work together. Let's work together to clear this out, not hang on to that old stuff anymore. This is the 5th house, and this is about passion. A lot of times people may be really passionate about clearing out their childhood, that inner child healing. They're really passionate about it, and sometimes they have to take a step back. And that's okay to take a step back or take a break for a period of time. It's not okay to stop. You have to keep working it. You have to keep working the system, because that's what's going to lead to a healing and literally having a life that you could never imagine before. Peaceful, passionate, and fun as well. This is the midhaven, and this is all about the pinnacle. You will have some times where you're just like, you feel at the top of the peak, and you're just like, gosh, we've got to take a break. It's okay, like I said, to take a break. It's not okay to stop entirely, because it's important that you are fulfilling what is important for you, and that you are kind of bringing this forward, kind of like bringing this energy up of, let's talk about it, let's look at it differently, and let's move on with it. Let's not hang on to that old stuff anymore. This is the 8th house, and this is all about the mystery. So many times we don't know how that got into the family. How did that abuse get into the family? How did that sexual abuse or physical abuse or emotional abuse get in the family? Like, where did it come from? Who started all of this? And it's one of those, like I said, usually the abuser for one person was abused by someone else, and it just kind of goes back up the line, and it's kind of like this person abused this one, and you just like, oh my gosh, and you realize that's just overwhelming. It's important to kind of realize, like, you can make some new changes and fix it completely. This is the opposition, and this is about confrontation. This is about confronting the things in you, getting good clarity, which is our last card, clarity, and kind of getting a new insight and a new way of looking at all of this is so important. I thank you so much for joining me today, and I know that we'll be talking again soon.